Hello friends, and welcome once again to the Gesundheit Kitchen. My name is Hans. I am a stomach cancer survivor. No stomach, no esophagus, missing all sorts of stuff, but I have to fuel this machine every day, like it or not. And there are days where food is not my friend. I mean, I spend most of my life thinking about, talking about food, and some days food is just not an easy thing, for whatever reason. We go into those cycles. And breakfast being one of the hardest meals of the day. You wake up and you know you've got to get something in your system. Me living in North Georgia, I was raised on grits. And grits are basically polenta, and I know Italians would hate for me to call polenta grits, and Southerners, if I said polenta, would have no idea what I'm talking about. But it is essentially just ground cornmeal, and it's warm, it's smooth, it's one of those kind of comfort foods. You might have been raised on oatmeal or porridge. I was raised on grits. But grits, nutritionally, they're not totally devoid. There's some great things. There's niacin, there's a little bit of protein, especially in the yellow cornmeal is a little more nutritious than the white. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, but also a good hack on how to increase the nutritional value. Because again, this is one of those kind of safe foods for me on a day that I'm not feeling like a big breakfast. I mean, that big, not quantity-wise, but sort of weight-wise, heavy-wise. Grits are a great thing. And they're so versatile. We're going to do a couple things with them. Now, again, it's essentially a porridge. It's a cornmeal porridge. 1 cup of cornmeal grits into 3 cups of water. Got the water to a boil. Maybe a little pinch of salt in there. Now, anytime you're making a porridge, I'm starting on high heat because I wanted to get the water boiling. But once this starts to thicken, which will happen in the next couple minutes here, it kind of acts like volcanic lava. Like it'll start doing this bloop. And that bloop, there's a technical term, very kitchen, unfriendly term there. It can burn, all right? So once I have got this incorporated, I'm gonna crank this down from full throttle to sort of a medium high. And as it thickens, I'll even back it off a little bit because it does thicken. Like I said, the air gets trapped as the heat is rising, and it acts like magma, and it pops up. And I just don't want you getting burned because then you're gonna think, oh, nothing wrong with the instant variety, but you will find that making it from scratch, and I've talked about this before, it's part of the process, right? It's part of being mindful and slowing down. Yes, there are times where you're on a time limit and you gotta eat before you take the kids to soccer, or in my case, pickleball. But there's something about having a podcast on, your favorite tunes, the new Saint Motel album, whatever you're into, letting this cooking time be your time, letting it be your moment to kind of be in the moment and think about food. As you can see, it's starting to do the magma thing, right? These big blips. So keep it moving. And again, I've got kind of a medium-high heat. If this is the part where you really don't want to run away, because if you let it sit too long, it can scorch on the bottom. And same with oatmeal, same with any kind of a porridge. That burnt flavor, even if you have a dime-size bit stick on the bottom, it'll transfer throughout the whole pot. And at that point, there's really not much you can do. But look, we're already at that nice, smooth, creamy consistency. I'm going to turn it down to just a simmer now, because now it really is just a matter of those grains. They almost triple in size. You saw how much water. It was 3 to 1. 3 parts water to 1 part of the polenta here. Grits, if you're from my neck of the woods. This is so good as a foundational thing. On the bottom of a grilled piece of salmon, or even some sauteed veggies on a nice little bed of polenta. It's great. But again, 4 grams of protein. Now here's my hack. And I love quinoa. I'm kind of having a renaissance with quinoa. We'll do another episode, kind of my open love letter to quinoa again. It got trendy, and for a while I tried to kind of avoid it. I'm back in love with quinoa because by adding a cup of quinoa to this cup of polenta, I've more than doubled the amount of protein. Now this is cooked quinoa, so let me stress that again. This is not quinoa straight out of the bag. This you cook like rice. It's 2 to 1, 2 parts water or stock to 1 part quinoa. The quinoa is rinsed. Again, we'll get into quinoa a little more, but this cooked quinoa, adding it to my now basically done polenta / grits, and I'm going to stir this in. I'm going to go ahead and kill the heat at this point. It's done. I don't want to have this stuff jump up at me, but I'm going to incorporate this, and I've now, like I said, taken it from 4 grams of protein per serving up to 10 grams of protein per serving. And I haven't changed the flavor at all, right? I have nothing other than a little salt. There's no butter, there's no oil in here. And I do tend to cook these things neutral because some people like sweeter grits, which is not how I was raised, but some people like a little honey in their grits. So in any direction you can take this, and as a porridge, as a mashed potato substitute, as a side dish or a foundation, this is perfect, just like that. But here's my hack, or here's my next iteration of this. So after you have cooked the polenta, if you put it into a well-oiled, shallow container, it can be square, rectangle, round, whatever you want, but you want it to be shallow. And again, I took a little bit of olive oil, went all the way around there, and then I refrigerated this. It becomes solid. And with any luck, this thing's gonna pop out, look at that. And this now is almost like a meat substitute. Again, 10 grams of protein, which on paper, a piece of chicken or a piece of steak might have more, but without a stomach, it's a very hard to break down protein. Again, on paper it's there, but we're sort of missing a lot of the equipment that it takes to break that apart. So plant-based protein that's already been cooked is a little easier for us to process. So what we're gonna do is take this nice thing and into any shape you want, and I tend to like to do kind of more of a stir fry kind of things with it. I'll just cut this into cubes. Let me just set this to the side, save this for later. This now becomes almost like a protein crouton. In fact, they're great as croutons in a salad if I toast these up. Some people, I don't really have an air fryer, but I've worked with them. Those are great for this, but I typically like to just do a little bit of a saute. So let me get another eye heating up here. So we talked about good fats, healthy fats. I'm using avocado oil here, but whatever your preference is. Coconut oil, a little butter, a butter and oil mix works good. I just want to get something that'll be a good vehicle to add a little bit of crispy edges. I'm not deep frying this at all. That's not the plan. I just want to get the oil nice and hot and get a little sear on this, and then I'll just throw in, some whatever I have. I've talked about this before. I like utilizing leftovers because I like to cook once and eat multiple times. So I've got some leftover broccolini from a previous meal, which is just, the baby broccoli, or sometimes called Chinese broccoli. So I've got a stick-resistant, ideally, skillet going on here. Again, this was refrigerated, so these are nice and firm. Want the oil to get a little hot here, and then we'll just go in with our cubes, and I'm just going to get a few of them going here for our demonstration purposes, like what I would eat. But this holds in the fridge easily for the better part of a week. I'd say 5 to 7 days. Obviously, again, refrigerated. You can freeze it. When you freeze it, it will get even denser. You'll have sometimes a little liquid will extract from that. I would pour that liquid off, kind of take a paper towel, get that excess liquid off of there. But you cook once, it's great as a soft porridge, and as I said, eat multiple times. To me, that's the way to do it. It's not every day that you feel amazing, right? I mean, we're gonna have our peaks and valleys and our ups and downs. So when you're feeling good, you spend the time in the kitchen, you make things like this that you can eat right then for breakfast. In fact, I had today, setting this up, I had some left over. That's what I had for breakfast. I had some quinoa. I call this quinoa speckled polenta, and it was perfect. It was the right amount. My 9-year-old loved it. She, it wasn't anything too weird or unusual for her. It was comfortable enough, like our normal grits. Had I called it quinoa speckled polenta, she probably would have looked at me a little sideways and had her hesitations. But straight out, she was totally fine with it. So I'm not deep frying these. They're already cooked. It's not like I'm having to bring these to a certain temperature. All I'm looking for is just some crunch, a little bit of I'm searing the outside just so they have a little bit of a crispness on the outside. They're totally fine to eat cold just like this. I'm just trying to warm them through and give them a little crispiness to them. They're not absorbing a ton of oil, but I intentionally put a little extra oil in there so that when I'm adding my par-cooked broccolini, again, this is essentially a leftover from a previous meal. If you were to look in my fridge, number one, I would say, why are you in my house looking in my fridge? But number two, you're going to see things that are now the building blocks of future meals. This same broccolini could end up in a soup. It could end up in an omelet in the morning. It could end up in a pasta salad. I like having things like this. So rather than cooking for one meal, I'm cooking the entire bag or the entire head of broccoli or cauliflower, whatever it is, knowing that this will be a future ingredient in a put together piecemeal meal, because when I'm ready to eat, I might not feel fantastic. And sometimes eating can be a chore. And I hate to admit that, but it is, right? I mean, we have to be so mindful of putting those calories in so that we're not losing weight. It's kind of the kind of thing that other people say, oh, it must be so nice to get to eat. No, it's not. Be careful what you wish for. I love food. It's what I live and breathe. But there are times where it becomes a chore, and having these things par-baked, par-cooked, it really is a totally different way of thinking about food. But at the end of the day, it helps me pack those calories in, get that protein in, without having to start from scratch. If I had to now cook the polenta, cook the quinoa, cook the broccolini from scratch each day, it's overwhelming. Have these building blocks ready, and it makes eating so much more enjoyable and less of a chore. It's always a chore, right? I mean, it's anytime. If you ask any stay-at-home parent, dads and moms, you're responsible for feeding the whole family, but when you don't have a stomach, it's just a different game. So here we go. All I'm going to do is season this, little salt, pepper, whichever direction you want to take it. But those are nice, crispy cubes, and I know that I'm getting my 10 grams of protein in my machine, or again, if I'm feeding my family. Yes, maybe my priority is getting my calories in, good calories, but I also know that this is the kind of thing that the whole family would enjoy without being quote unquote weird, because I've been accused of making weird food. But I really am just trying to keep it interesting for myself so that it's not so much of a chore. So we got our little polenta, crisped polenta cubes with some broccolini. And again, that could be a side dish for a piece of flounder, a piece of salmon, piece of whatever works best for you. That's the most important thing. Again, season it as you like, but I know that is some good stuff. If you are a grits fan or a polenta fan, it's basically the same thing. Again, grits are typically the white cornmeal, but adding the cooked quinoa to that just raise the bar as far as nutrition, protein. Try it, see what you think. This stuff holds well, can be used in so many different ways, and hopefully it's a different twist on something that you're familiar with. And if you haven't tried it, give it a try. I think you'll like it. You can take it in any direction. So until our next visit in the Gesundheit kitchen, take care of yourself, or if you're the caregiver, make sure you take care of your loved one. Try something new, see what you think. 10 grams of protein, can't go wrong. Be well.